David was having the worst night of his life when everything changed forever. The 32-year-old weather guy had been working late at the Desert Research Station outside Phoenix, trying to fix a broken wind meter that his boss needed ready by morning. It was September 15, 2022, and the biggest meteor shower of the year was lighting up the dark sky above him. He'd been looking forward to this night for months. David loved watching the stars. Always had since he was a kid, but instead of enjoying the beautiful light show, he was stuck on his hands and knees, fighting with stubborn bolts and cursing his luck. His flashlight kept dying, his tools kept slipping, and he was starting to think he'd be out there all night. That's when he saw something that made him forget all about his broken equipment. At first, David thought it was just another shooting star, maybe a bigger piece of space rock than the others. But this one was different. Instead of streaking across the sky and disappearing, this light seemed to slow down, almost like it was being controlled. It got brighter and brighter until David had to shield his eyes. Then it landed. Not crashed, landed. Softly, quietly, about 200 yards away behind a cluster of desert rocks. David felt his heart start beating faster. In all his years of weather work, he'd never seen anything like this. Maybe it was some kind of military test. Or perhaps a weather balloon that had caught fire? He grabbed his good flashlight and started walking toward the landing spot, telling himself he was just being a good scientist. After all, if it was some kind of meteorite, it could be worth studying. The desert was quiet except for the crunch of his boots on sand and small rocks. As he got closer, David started having second thoughts. What if it was dangerous? What if it was radioactive or something? But his curiosity was stronger than his fear, and he kept walking. That's when he saw her. She was standing about 50 feet from where the light had landed, looking up at the stars like she was reading a map. David stopped walking and just stared. In the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, there was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She was tall and graceful, wearing clothes that looked expensive, but didn't seem right for desert hiking. Her hair was long and dark, almost black, and it seemed to catch the starlight in a way that made it look like it was glowing. Even from a distance, David could see her skin was very pale, almost white, like she'd never spent a day in the Arizona sun. "Hello," she called out, and David jumped. He hadn't made any noise, but somehow she knew he was there. Beautiful night for star watching, don't you think? Her voice was musical, with an accent David couldn't place. It wasn't Spanish or French or anything else he recognized. It sounded almost like she was translating her thoughts from another language before speaking. Yeah, David managed to say, walking closer. "I'm David. I work at the research station over there. Did you see that bright light a few minutes ago?" She smiled, and David felt his knees get a little weak. Her smile was perfect, but there was something unusual about it. Her teeth were too white, too straight, and when she smiled, her whole face seemed to light up from the inside. "Light?" she asked, tilting her head. "Oh yes. The meteor activity tonight is quite spectacular. I'm Luna. I'm a researcher too, actually. I study atmospheric conditions and celestial events." David felt a little relieved. At least she had a reason to be out here, even if it was strange to run into another researcher so far from any main roads or facilities. "What kind of research?" he asked, genuinely curious. Luna walked closer, and David noticed she moved differently than most people. Her steps were too light, too smooth, like she was floating just above the ground. Weather patterns, electromagnetic fields, the way cosmic events affect planetary atmospheres, she said, looking at his equipment with intense interest. "Is that a barometric pressure sensor?" David looked down at the device in his hand, surprised. Most people had no idea what his weather instruments were, let alone their specific names. "Yeah, it is. How did you know that?" Luna laughed, a sound like silver bells ringing. "I told you. I'm a researcher. I know equipment when I see it. May I look?" She moved closer, and David caught a scent he couldn't identify, something clean and fresh, like air after a thunderstorm, but sweeter. When she reached for the instrument, Her fingers brushed his, and David felt a shock that had nothing to do with static electricity. Her skin was cool, much cooler than it should be on a warm desert night. This is very sophisticated, Luna said, examining the device with expert eyes. But I think your calibration might be off. The pressure reading should be about 3 points higher. David looked at the display and felt his mouth drop open. She was right. The sensor had been giving slightly low readings all week, and he'd been planning to recalibrate it in the morning. How could you possibly know that? He asked. Luna handed the device back with another mysterious smile. I'm very sensitive to atmospheric changes. I can feel the pressure in my bones, you might say. They talked for the next 4 hours, sitting on a flat rock while the meteor shower continued above them. David found himself telling Luna things he'd never told anyone. His dreams of studying storms, his love of the night sky, even his fear that he was wasting his life on weather reports instead of doing something important. Luna listened to everything with complete attention, asking questions that showed she understood not just what he was saying, but what he really meant. When he talked about feeling small under the vast desert sky, she nodded like she knew exactly what that felt like. The universe is infinite, she said softly, looking up at the stars. But that doesn't make us insignificant. Every person, every world, every moment of connection matters. The fact that we're here, right now, talking under these ancient stars, that's not an accident. That's the universe working exactly as it should. David had never heard anyone talk like that before. Luna spoke about space and time and the cosmos like she had personal experience with them. When she described the way solar winds affected Earth's magnetic field, she used present tense as if she was watching it happen right now. As dawn started to creep across the horizon, Luna stood up suddenly. I have to go, she said, and David felt panic rise in his chest. Wait, can I see you again? I don't even have your number. Luna paused, looking at the brightening sky with what seemed like worry. When the moon is full again, I'll find you, I promise. But how will you? She was already walking away, moving with that strange, floating grace toward the rocks where David had first seen the mysterious light. He called after her, but she didn't turn around. In the growing light of dawn, she seemed to fade into the landscape until David couldn't see her anymore. He stood there for a long time, wondering if the whole thing had been a dream. The lack of sleep, the desert air, the meteor shower, maybe his mind had played tricks on him. But when he looked down at his pressure sensor, the reading had been adjusted to exactly the right calibration. David drove home that morning, thinking about Luna's strange accent, her impossible knowledge of his equipment, and the way she'd talked about the universe like she knew its secrets. Most of all, he thought about her promise to find him when the moon was full. He had no idea his life had just changed forever. David counted every single day until the next full moon, 28 days of checking his phone, looking at the sky, and wondering if he'd imagined the whole thing. He'd gone back to the desert spot 3 times, hoping to find some trace of Luna or that mysterious light, but found nothing except his own footprints in the sand. Then, exactly 1 month later, she knocked on his apartment door. David was eating leftover pizza and watching the Weather Channel when he heard the soft knocking. He wasn't expecting anyone, and it was almost 10 at night when he opened the door. Luna was standing there in the hallway light, looking exactly as beautiful and mysterious as he remembered. Hello, David, she said with that musical voice. I told you I'd find you. His heart started racing. How did you know where I live? I never gave you my address. Luna smiled that perfect smile. I'm very good at finding people I want to see. May I come in? David stepped aside, still feeling like he was in a dream. Luna walked into his small apartment, looking around with curious eyes. She seemed to take in every detail, the weather maps on his walls, the scientific journals on his coffee table, even the half-eaten pizza. You live alone, she observed. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I do. Luna, I have to ask, how did you really find me? And where have you been for the past month? She sat down on his couch, moving with that same graceful way she had in the desert. I've been traveling for my research. I study many different locations. But I've been thinking about you, David, about our conversation under the stars. Over the next few weeks, Luna started appearing in David's life regularly. She never called ahead or made plans. She would just show up at his apartment, at his work, even at the grocery store once. It should have felt creepy, but somehow it didn't. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. Their first real date was at a small restaurant downtown. Luna ordered only a salad and barely touched it, claiming she wasn't very hungry. When David asked what she liked to eat, she gave vague answers about special dietary needs and research nutrition requirements. But her lack of appetite didn't matter because talking to Luna was like discovering a new world. She knew things that seemed impossible. When David mentioned a storm system building over California, Luna described exactly how it would move across the country over the next week. She was right down to the hour. "How do you know all this?" David asked, amazed. "I pay very close attention to patterns," Luna replied. "When you study the atmosphere long enough, you start to feel its rhythms." She talked about weather the way poets talked about love. Luna described wind currents like they were rivers of music, and explained pressure systems like they were living things with personalities. David, who'd been studying weather for over a decade, had never heard anyone speak about his field with such deep understanding. Their relationship moved quickly, but it felt right. Within 2 weeks, they were spending every evening together. Luna would appear at his apartment just as he was getting home from work, as if she somehow knew his schedule perfectly. David noticed strange things, but he was too happy to worry much about them. Luna never seemed to sleep. He'd wake up at 3 in the morning and find her standing by the window, looking up at the stars. When he asked if she was okay, she'd smile and say she was just thinking. Her skin was always cool to the touch, even on hot Arizona days. David joked that she was like a natural air conditioner. But Luna didn't laugh. She just looked at him with those bright green eyes and changed the subject. Electronics acted weird around Luna. David's phone would lose signal when she was near, and his weather instruments would give impossible readings. His digital thermometer once showed the temperature dropping 30 degrees in 5 minutes. While they were sitting together on his porch on a perfectly calm evening. "Must be broken," David said, tapping the device. "Technology can be unpredictable." Luna replied quietly. Luna paid for everything in cash, which she pulled from a small bag that seemed to hold unlimited money. When David offered to split bills or pay for dates, she waved him off. "I have resources for my research," she'd say. "Don't worry about it." She had no social media accounts, no online presence at all. David tried searching for her name connected to universities or research institutions, but found nothing. When he asked where she went to school, Luna gave the name of a university he'd never heard of. "It's very specialized," she explained. "Small program, focused on atmospheric studies." The strangest thing was how Luna seemed to know things about David that he'd never told her. She knew he was worried about his mother's health before he mentioned his mother was sick. She brought him soup when he was getting a cold before he felt any symptoms. She even knew his favorite childhood movie without him ever mentioning it. "Lucky guesses," she'd say when he asked how she knew these things. But David didn't feel lucky. He felt like he was falling in love with someone who could read his mind. Their first month together was magical in ways David couldn't explain. Luna had a way of making ordinary moments feel special. When they watched sunsets together, the colors seemed brighter. When they walked in the desert, the stars seemed closer. Even simple things like cooking dinner became adventures when Luna was there. She had knowledge that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Luna could speak French, Spanish, and what sounded like 3 or 4 other languages David couldn't identify. She knew about ancient history like she'd been there, describing events with details he'd never read in any textbook. "Where did you learn all this?" David asked one evening after Luna had spent an hour explaining the connection between solar activity and ancient civilizations. "I read a lot," she said simply. "I've always been curious about how things connect." David was falling deeper in love every day, but part of him was starting to feel uneasy. Luna was perfect, to perfect. She never got angry, never seemed tired, never had bad days. She remembered everything he said and seemed to anticipate his needs before he knew them himself. When he mentioned these feelings to his friend Tony at work, Tony laughed. "Dude, you're complaining because your girlfriend is too awesome? That's a good problem to have." But it didn't feel like a good problem. It felt like David was dating someone who wasn't quite real. Someone who was playing a role perfectly, but forgetting to make it believable. Still, when Luna looked at him with those impossibly green eyes and spoke in that musical voice, all his doubts melted away. Whatever secret she was keeping, whatever impossible things were happening around her, David knew one thing for certain. He was completely, hopelessly in love with her. He just wished he could shake the feeling that Luna was loving him back from somewhere very, very far away. 3 months into their relationship, David's scientific brain started keeping track of things that didn't add up. He didn't want to be suspicious of Luna, but his training as a researcher made him notice patterns whether he wanted to or not. It started with small things that seemed innocent enough. Luna would mention historical events like she'd witnessed them personally. She'd say things like when the 1906 earthquake hit San Francisco. The weather patterns were unusual for days afterward instead of during the 1906 earthquake like a normal person would. At first, David thought it was just the way she spoke English with that mysterious accent. But then she did it with events from different centuries, different continents, always using present tense like she'd been there watching. The language thing was getting weirder too. One evening at a restaurant, their waiter was struggling with a difficult customer who was yelling in what sounded like Russian. Luna listened for a moment, then walked over and spoke to the angry man in perfect Russian, calming him down immediately. "Where did you learn Russian?" David asked when she came back. "I picked it up recently." Luna said casually, "Languages come easily to me." But the next week, she did the same thing with a lost tourist speaking Italian, then German, then something that didn't sound like any language David had ever heard, all clicks and musical tones that made his ears tingle. David started testing her without meaning to. He'd mention random places around the world, and Luna would describe them in perfect detail. She knew about weather patterns in places she claimed never to have visited. She could tell him about local customs, food, even specific buildings and cities she said she'd only read about. "Have you ever been to Iceland?" he asked one night while they were watching a travel show. "Not officially," Luna said, then caught herself. "I mean, no, but I've studied the climate patterns there extensively. The geothermal activity creates fascinating atmospheric conditions." She went on to describe the exact temperature variations around specific hot springs, the way the northern lights looked from particular mountains, and even what the air smelled like during certain weather conditions. It wasn't the kind of information you got from books or internet research. The breakthrough moment came during a winter storm in December. David was at work, tracking a complex weather system that was supposed to bring snow to Phoenix, a rare event that had everyone excited. The meteorological models were all over the place, with different computers predicting different outcomes. Luna called him just as he was staring at confusing radar data. "The storm will split into parts around 3:15 this afternoon," she said, without any greeting. "The northern section will dump snow on Flagstaff and the mountain areas. The southern part will bring rain to Phoenix, but only for 40 minutes. There will be a power outage in the downtown area at exactly 4:22. Affecting about 12,000 homes." David looked at his computer screen full of uncertain predictions. "Luna, how can you possibly know all that? I can feel it coming," she said. "The pressure changes, the electromagnetic shifts. It's all connected, David. You just have to learn to read the signs." Everything happened exactly as Luna predicted. The storm split at 3:15. Phoenix got 40 minutes of rain. The power went out downtown at 4:22, affecting exactly the number of homes she'd mentioned. David's colleagues spent the day amazed by the accuracy of the predictions, assuming David's equipment had been upgraded. But David knew better. There was no equipment on Earth that could make those kinds of precise predictions. About local power outages, that night, he decided to follow Luna. She'd been leaving his apartment earlier than usual, claiming she needed to check on her research equipment in the desert. David waited until she was gone, then drove out to the area where they'd first met, using a different route so she wouldn't see his headlights. What he saw made his hands shake on the steering wheel. Luna was standing in the middle of the desert, completely motionless, about 200 yards from his hidden parking spot. She wasn't checking equipment or doing anything that looked like normal research. She was just standing there, arms at her sides, face turned up to the night sky, for over 2 hours. She didn't move. Not once. No human being could stand that still for that long. David watched through binoculars, and Luna looked like a statue, perfectly balanced, not even swaying in the desert wind. Then, just before midnight, something incredible happened. The stars above Luna seemed to get brighter. Not all of them, just certain ones, in a pattern David couldn't understand. The bright stars pulsed in what looked like a rhythm, almost like they were communicating. Luna raised her arms slowly, and David could swear he saw light coming from her hands. Not flashlight beams or reflected light, actual light, glowing from her skin like she had tiny stars under her fingers. The light show lasted about 10 minutes. Then the stars returned to normal brightness. Luna lowered her arms, and she started walking back toward the road where David knew she'd parked her car. David drove home fast, making sure to get there before Luna returned. When she arrived at his apartment 20 minutes later, she looked tired for the first time since he'd known her. "How was your research?" he asked, trying to sound casual, productive. Luna said quietly, "The atmospheric readings were very interesting." Tonight, David started researching everything he could find about unusual phenomena in their area. He discovered that UFO sightings had increased dramatically over the past few months, with most reports coming from the desert region where he'd first met Luna. The descriptions were similar: bright lights that moved in controlled patterns, objects that seemed to communicate with each other, sightings that happened exactly when Luna was doing her research. His colleague Tony mentioned the reports one day at work. "Weird stuff happening out there lately," Tony said. "Probably just military testing, but people are seeing some strange things. Started right around the time you met that girlfriend of yours. Maybe she's good luck for alien hunters." David forced a laugh, but his stomach felt sick. He found strange markings carved into rocks around the research station, symbols that looked like no human language he'd ever seen. The marks appeared fresh, and they showed up in new locations every few days. When David photographed them and searched online, he found similar symbols reported at other UFO sighting locations around the world. The most disturbing discovery came when David decided to investigate Luna's background more thoroughly. He used every database he had access to through his work, searching for any record of her existence. Luna had no birth certificate, no social security number, no driver's license, no passport records. She had never attended any school, never worked at any job, never lived at any address, according to every official record in existence. Luna didn't exist. David confronted her about it on a Tuesday evening in late December. "Luna, I can't find any record of you anywhere. No background, no history, nothing. How is that possible?" She looked at him with those impossibly green eyes, and for the first time, David saw something that looked like fear. "Some people value privacy, David. I've lived a very quiet life. Nobody lives that quietly. I can't even find a library card or a gym membership. It's like you didn't exist before I met you." Luna was quiet for a long time, staring out his window at the night sky. "What if I told you that some things are bigger than individual identity?" she said finally. "What if I told you that love can exist between people who are more different than you ever imagined?" "What are you talking about, Luna?" She turned to look at him, and David saw tears in her eyes for the first time. "I'm talking about the fact that I love you more than I ever thought possible. And that might be the most dangerous thing that could happen to both of us." The solar eclipse was supposed to be the perfect romantic moment. David had planned everything carefully: a special viewing spot in the desert, eclipse glasses, even a picnic basket with Luna's favorite snacks. April 8th, 2023 would mark 6 months since they met, and David wanted to celebrate by watching this rare cosmic event together. But as the day approached, Luna became increasingly nervous. She kept checking the sky, consulting weather apps obsessively, and asking David strange questions about the exact timing of the eclipse. Will totality last exactly for minutes and 12 seconds? She asked for the third time that morning. Yes, Luna, just like it is every other time you've asked. Why are you so worried about the timing? She gave him that mysterious smile, but David could see tension in her eyes. I just want everything to be perfect for us. They drove out to their special spot in the desert around noon. The eclipse wouldn't reach totality until 2:47 p.m. But Luna insisted they needed to be there early. She seemed restless, pacing around their blanket and constantly looking up at the sky as the moon began its slow journey across the sun. Are you feeling okay? David asked. You seem really anxious today. I'm fine, Luna said, but her voice sounded strained. It's just solar eclipses affect me strongly. The electromagnetic changes, the gravitational shifts. I'm very sensitive to these things. As the eclipse progressed, David noticed his electronic equipment was acting stranger than usual. His phone completely lost signal. His digital camera kept shutting off by itself, and the portable radio he'd brought was picking up signals that sounded like music from another planet. This is weird, David said, shaking his radio. I've never heard interference like this during an eclipse before. Luna wasn't listening. She was staring at the partially covered sun through her eclipse glasses, and David could see her hands shaking. Luna, you're scaring me. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, she said quickly. I just need to concentrate for a few minutes. As totality approached, the desert around them began to change. The temperature dropped noticeably, shadows became sharper, and an eerie twilight settled over the landscape. David had experienced eclipses before, but this felt different. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy. Then, at exactly 2:47 p.m., the moon completely covered the sun. In that moment of total darkness, everything changed. Luna's eclipse glasses fell from her hands as she gasped and staggered backward. David reached out to catch her, and that's when he saw what would haunt his dreams forever. Luna's eyes were glowing, not reflecting light, actually glowing with a bright, silvery radiance that cut through the eclipse darkness like searchlights. Her skin, which had always been pale, now had an iridescent quality that made her look like she was made of starlight. Luna, what's happening to you? David whispered, too shocked to move. She tried to speak, but the words that came out weren't in any human language. They were musical, flowing sounds that seemed to resonate in David's chest. The strange language filled the air around them, and David realized with growing terror that Luna wasn't just speaking. She was communicating with something above them. The corona of the eclipsed sun began pulsing in rhythm with Luna's words. And then David saw them, lights in the sky that definitely weren't stars. 3 bright objects moving in perfect formation, getting closer and brighter as Luna's strange song continued. No, no, no. Luna suddenly cried out in English, her voice filled with panic. Not yet. I need more time. The lights in the sky pulsed brighter, and Luna collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. David could see tears streaming down her face, and those tears were glowing the same silver color as her eyes. Luna, please tell me what's happening. David knelt beside her, afraid to touch her glowing skin but desperate to help. I can't control it anymore, Luna gasped. The eclipse, it's disrupting my disguise. David, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what, Luna? You're not making sense. She looked up at him, and David saw pain and love and terrible sadness in those glowing eyes. I'm not human, David. I never was. The words hit David like a physical blow. He sat back on his heels, staring at this woman he loved, watching her skin shimmer with otherworldly light. That's impossible, he whispered. Is it? Luna asked sadly. Haven't you been wondering about all the things that didn't make sense? My knowledge, my abilities, the way electronics act around me. David, I'm from somewhere else. Somewhere very far away. The lights in the sky were getting closer, And David could now see they were definitely not natural phenomena. They were craft of some kind, sleek and silent, moving in ways that defied everything he knew about physics. "Those are your people," David said. It wasn't a question. Luna nodded, struggling to her feet. Her glow was getting brighter as the eclipse continued, and David realized that whatever technology or energy had been hiding her true nature was failing. "We've been studying Earth for decades," Luna said, her voice now carrying that musical quality even when she spoke English. "Climate patterns, atmospheric changes, preparing for possible future needs. I was sent here as a researcher, an observer. I was never supposed to make contact, never supposed to get involved. But you did," David said, feeling his world crumble around him. "I did." Luna's voice broke. "I met you, and everything changed. I'd studied human emotions in theory, but I'd never experienced them. I didn't know love could feel like this. I didn't know it could make you want to abandon everything you've ever known." The eclipse was reaching its peak, and Luna's transformation was complete. She no longer looked entirely human. Her features were the same, but refined, perfected. Her skin glowed with soft light, her hair moved as if floating in water, and when she spoke, her voice harmonized with itself in impossible ways. "Are there others like you?" David asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. "Yes. Teams stationed around your world, gathering information. But David, I'm the first to form an emotional attachment to a human subject. My superiors don't understand what's happened to me." The craft in the sky had stopped moving and were hovering directly above them. David could feel a low humming vibration in his bones. "They're calling me back," Luna said, looking up at the lights with expression full of grief. "My mission is complete. The eclipse is my pickup time." "Pickup time?" David felt panic rising in his chest. "David, my people are preparing for a great journey. Our world is dying, and we need to find a new home. Earth is one of our options. I was studying your climate to see if our species could survive here." The implications hit David like a truck. "You're talking about invasion." "No," Luna said quickly. "Not invasion. We don't want to harm humans. We're looking for peaceful coexistence, maybe even partnership. Your species has qualities we admire: creativity, adaptability, the capacity for love. But the decision isn't mine to make." The totality of the eclipse was ending. As the first sliver of sunlight appeared from behind the moon, Luna's glow began to fade slightly. "I have to go with them," she said, tears still streaming down her face. "If I don't, they'll assume I've been compromised, that humans are a threat, to be eliminated rather than potential allies." "But what about us?" David asked desperately. "What about what we have together?" Luna reached out and touched his face with her cool, glowing hand. "What we have is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. It's proof that love can exist between any two beings, no matter how different. But David, if I stay, I put both our worlds in danger." The craft above them pulsed with brighter light, and David heard that same musical language Luna had been speaking, but now coming from the sky. "They're getting impatient," Luna said. "I have to make a choice right now. Go with them and try to convince them that humans are worth saving, or stay here with you and risk everything." David looked up at the alien craft, then back at Luna's beautiful, impossible face. In the growing daylight as the eclipse ended, she was slowly beginning to look human again. But David knew he would never see her the same way. "Go," he said, though the word felt like it was tearing his heart out. "If there's a chance you can help both our species, you have to go." Luna's face crumpled with grief, but David could see relief there too. "I love you, David. Whatever happens next, remember that love is the strongest force in the universe. And what we found together proves that any two worlds can find peace." She kissed him then, and her lips tasted like starlight and infinite space. When she pulled away, she was already starting to fade, becoming translucent like she was made of light. "Will I ever see you again?" David asked. Luna smiled through her tears. "Look for me in the stars. And David, keep studying the weather. Keep watching the sky. Someday, when the time is right, I'll find a way to come back to you." The light around her grew brighter, lifting her off the ground. David watched in amazement and heartbreak as the woman he loved floated up toward the waiting craft, her form becoming pure light before disappearing into the sky. The ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving David alone in them, desert with the memory of impossible love and the knowledge that he was no longer alone in the universe. For 3 weeks after the eclipse, David felt like he was living in a nightmare. He went through the motions of his normal life, going to work, checking weather patterns, eating meals he couldn't taste, but everything felt hollow and unreal. The woman he loved had literally vanished into space, and he was the only person on Earth who knew the truth about what had happened. His colleagues noticed the change in him immediately. "You look terrible, man," Tony said one morning at the research station. "What happened to that girlfriend of yours, Luna, right? You haven't mentioned her in weeks." David had prepared for this question, but it still hurt to answer. She had to travel for her research, long-term assignment. "We're taking a break." It was technically true, just not in any way Tony could possibly understand. David threw himself into his work, studying atmospheric patterns with renewed intensity. Every unusual reading, every strange electromagnetic fluctuation made his heart race. Was it a sign? A message? Or just his mind playing tricks on him because he desperately wanted Luna to contact him somehow? Then, on a Tuesday night in early May, everything changed again. David was at home, staring at weather satellite data on his laptop, when his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but something made him answer. "David?" The voice was Luna's, but it sounded different, distant, like she was calling from very far away. David nearly dropped the phone. "Luna, is that really you? Where are you?" "I can't talk long," she said urgently. "This connection is dangerous for both of us, but I had to tell you, I've been arguing your case. I've been telling them about human capacity for love, for growth, for cooperation. My case, Luna, where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm traveling. My people have many ships, many missions. I've been visiting other worlds they're considering. But David, I keep telling them Earth is different. Humans are different. What you and I shared proves that our species can coexist." David felt tears in his eyes. "I miss you so much. I don't know how to live without you." "You have to," Luna said, and he could hear sadness in her voice. "But David, listen carefully. In 6 months, there will be a total lunar eclipse visible from your area. During that eclipse, if my arguments have been successful, if I can convince them you're worth the risk, I might be able to return. Not permanently, but for a visit, Luna. I want more than visits. I want you back." "I know," she whispered. "I want that too. But we have to be patient. Change takes time, especially when it involves two entirely different worlds." The line started crackling with static. "I have to go," Luna said quickly. "Remember, October 28th. Watch for the eclipse. And David, keep being the amazing person you are. You're proof that humans deserve a chance." The phone went dead, leaving David staring at it in his quiet apartment. 6 months felt like a lifetime, but at least now he had hope. David spent those months preparing. He researched everything he could about lunar eclipses, studied the October 28th event until he knew exactly when and where it would be visible. He also started keeping a journal, writing down everything he remembered about Luna, everything she'd told him about her people and their mission. More importantly, he started reaching out to other people. David began connecting with astronomers, meteorologists, and researchers who had reported unusual phenomena. Carefully, cautiously, he started sharing edited versions of his story. He talked about unusual atmospheric readings, strange electromagnetic events, and his theory that Earth was being observed by advanced beings. Most people thought he was crazy, but a few listened. A small network of scientists and researchers began sharing information about unexplained events, creating a quiet community of people who believed Earth was not alone in the universe. David also changed how he lived his own life. He started volunteering at schools, talking to kids about science and the wonder of the universe. He began treating every person he met with more kindness, more patience, trying to be the kind of human Luna could be proud of. The months passed slowly, but they passed. And on October 28th, David was ready. He drove to the same spot in the desert, where everything had begun, where he first met Luna over a year ago. The lunar eclipse was supposed to start just after midnight, and David arrived early to set up his equipment and wait. As the Earth's shadow began crossing the moon, David felt his heart pounding. Would Luna really come? Had she been able to convince her people? Or was he sitting alone in the desert, chasing an impossible dream at 1:47 a.m.? During total eclipse, the desert around David began to glow with soft, familiar light. Luna appeared. Gradually, like she was stepping through a doorway made of starlight. She looked exactly as he remembered, beautiful, ethereal, glowing with that inner radiance that marked her as something beyond human. "David," she said, and her voice was music in the desert air. He ran to her, and she felt solid and real in his arms, though her skin still had that cool, electric quality he remembered. "You came back," he whispered into her hair. "I promised I would," Luna said, holding him tight. "And I have news. Good news." She pulled back to look at his face, her glowing eyes full of joy. "My people have agreed to a trial period. A small group of us will remain on Earth, living among humans, studying your culture more closely. If the trial goes well, it could lead to open contact, to partnership between our species." David felt his knees go weak with relief. "Does that mean you can stay?" "It means I can stay for now," Luna said carefully. "The trial period is 2 years. If humans and my people can coexist peacefully during that time, if we can prove that integration is possible, then yes, I can stay permanently. What do I need to do?" David asked immediately. "How can I help?" Luna smiled that perfect smile. "Just keep being yourself, keep treating people with kindness. Keep studying the sky and sharing your wonder about the universe. You're going to meet others like me over the next 2 years, David. Not many, but a few. We'll be living quietly among humans, learning about your world. Will people know? Will there be an announcement?" "Not yet," Luna said. "This has to be gradual. Too much change too quickly could cause panic, could make some humans react with fear instead of curiosity. We're going to take our time. Let understanding grow naturally." She reached into a small bag and pulled out something that looked like a smooth, silver stone. "This will let you contact me if you ever need to," Luna said, placing it in David's hand. "Not for emergencies. My people are monitoring all communications. But if you want to talk, if you miss me, just hold this and think about me. I'll feel it, and I'll find a way to respond." David looked down at the stone, which felt warm and seemed to pulse with gentle light. "Luna, I still don't understand everything that's happening. Your people, your world, the reasons you're here. But I know I love you, and I know I want to help however I can. That's all I need," Luna said softly. "Love and willingness to help. Those are the most human qualities, David. And they're the reason my people think this partnership might work." They spent the rest of the eclipse together, talking about the future, about possibilities, about the incredible changes that might be coming to both their worlds. When the moon began emerging from Earth's shadow, Luna started to fade again. "This time it's not goodbye," she said as she became translucent. "This time it's see you soon." "How soon?" David asked. "Sooner than you think," Luna replied with a mysterious smile. "I'll be around, David. Maybe not always visible, but around. And in 2 years, if everything goes according to plan, we'll never have to say goodbye again." She faded into starlight, leaving David alone in the desert with a warm stone in his hand and hope burning bright in his chest. The next morning, David woke up to find a text message on his phone from an unknown number. "Coffee later? I have some atmospheric research I'd love to discuss." David smiled, looking up at the clear Arizona sky. Somewhere up there, among the stars, were beings who had traveled impossible distances to find a new home. And somehow, against all odds, he had become the bridge between two worlds. His phone buzzed with another message. "P.S. I think you're going to love the next 2 years." David laughed out loud, holding the silver stone tight in his free hand. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and changes he couldn't even imagine. But for the first time since the eclipse, David felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He was living proof that love really could conquer anything, even the vast, cold distance between the stars.